A very good day to all of you. So, today, the poem that we are going to take is My Last Duchess. It's a beautiful poem written by Robert Browning, and it's a dramatic monologue. So, this poem it narrates a story we can say it presents the character of Duke of Ferrara and his late wife. So as I have told you that it's a dramatic monologue, and it's written by Robert Browning, who is a famous Victorian poet. So the story or the poem is all about the Duke of Ferrara, and he uses a painting of his former wife, late wife, uh, as a conversation piece. And to whom he is talking? The Duke. He is speaking about his former wife's perceived inadequacies to a representative of the family of his bride to be. And when he talks to that person, he exactly reveals some of his traits like obsession with controlling others in the process, jealous. So, when he speaks, he talks or he suggests his characteristics also. So, Browning uses this compelling psychological portrait of a despicable character to critique the objectification of women and abuses of power that were prevalent in Victorian era. So, I'm going to tell you first summary in brief. So, the poem is all about Duke of Ferrara and his late wife. She is no more, and the poem, he is actually conversing with the person. He is a messenger, and he has come for a new, we can say, he has come for the a new second marriage of the Duke. And when the Duke talks, he is giving the traits about him, and the speaker is very silent. He is not uttering a single word, and the Duke is of a jealous and greedy nature. He and it is suggestive that he has killed his previous wife, though he has not straightforward, though it is not straightforwardly said in the poem, but it is suggestive, quite suggestive, because she was so sweet and courteous to everybody. She was very innocent, she was felicitous, and she was very sufficiently, she was not sufficiently careful to please her husband. So the lady was very smiling, but her smiles were not reserved for her husband alone. So this suggests the jealous nature of the husband. So the evident truth was that he possessed a kind of pride and a jealous heart. And his pride is shown in the fact that he would allow only a priest, a priest is a religious person to paint her portrait. Moreover, he would not stoop to remonstrate her, and he considered it below his dignity. He always wished that his wife should behave according to his instructions. So the Duke, instead of correcting her mistakes, found it more convenient to get her murdered. When you will read the poem, you will read the line, I gave commands, then all smiles stopped together. So, this line suggests that he got her wife murdered. So, this narration shows the character of Duchess and the character of Duke. So Duke, he's a jealous person. He's very obsessive. He's possessive, and he's very mean. He's greedy, and he's cruel-hearted. And on in the contrast, Duchess, she's very beautiful. She's lovely. She's smiling, and she's frank, charming girl. And she comes from a very happy home, a bright. She's very innocent, and she was one of those lovely women whose kindness and responsiveness are as natural as sunlight. So she loved to watch the sunset from her terrace. Means she was so simple that even the simple things could please her. And she loved to pet the mule, and she was very much delighted when someone brought her a gift of any that gift can be any type of it can be a simple flower. So this nature of Duchess, it was troubling Duke. So he got her wife murdered. So this is a the poem. It's a psychological, or we can say a psychoanalytical description of the character of Duke. So now I hope you have known the poem in brief. Now we will study, or we will go through the poem. So here is the poem, My Last Duchess. So I'm going to read. That's my last Duchess, painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. I call that piece a wonder now. Fra Pandolf's hands worked busily a day, and there she stands. Will it please you to sit and look at her? I said. Fra Pandolf by design? For never read strangers like you that pictured countenance, the depth and passion of its earnest glance. But to myself they turned, since none puts by the curtain I have drawn for you, but I, and seemed as they would ask me if they durst, how such a glance came there. So, not the first are you to turn and ask thus. So this is the first stanza of the poem. That is my last Duchess. Read the line, read the word my. So this word my, it suggests the possessive nature of Duke. And he is pointing the portrait of his Duchess to the person who has come to his house. Right? So these lines, they show the possessive nature of Duke. So it's in the form of dramatic monologue, and the poem, the speaker is Duke. He is an Italian duke. He is Duke of Ferrara, and he reveals how out of jealousy he got his wife murdered. So the duke is talking to the messenger of the count whose daughter he is going to marry, and he shows to that messenger the painting of his previous wife as it is done on the wall. So, pointing towards the painting of the Duchess, he tells him that the picture looks as if the Duchess were still living. Read the line, looking as if she was alive. So, the picture is so realistic that it looks as if the Duchess were still living. And the Duke regards it a wonderful painting and thinks that it has been beautifully done by Fra Pandolf hands. Read the third line. So again, this third line, it suggests the nature of Duke. He was so possessive that he did not allow anyone to make a painting of his wife, but only a priest. He was a religious person. So he allowed only a religious person to make a portrait of his wife. Worked busily a day, and there she stands. So the this line shows that Fra Pandolf, that priest, he worked very hard throughout the day, and then it was the result of then we had this picture, beautiful portrait. So the duke cunningly reveals that he could not trust anybody to paint the picture except a religious person. So the artist was permitted only a single day to complete the portrait. Will it please you to sit and look at her? So the Duke asked the envoy to sit down and look at the painting of his wife. And his request to sit almost seems an order. I said Fra Pandolf by design. By design means deliberately. Means I am saying it deliberately because I only a religious person is allowed to make the portrait of my wife. For never read strangers like you that pictured countenance. So if you will read, never read strangers like you. So this suggests that how he let down the other people. He's saying that the people like you cannot read cannot make the picture of my beautiful wife. So he intentionally chose a monk painter to do the job. That was because many people who did not know the Duke and the Duchess, they might have thought that there must have been an affair between the Duchess and the painter. So this is the height of the stupid thinking of the Duke. So the Duke knows by experience how visitors saw the picture and found a suggestion in it of a kind of a affair. So the Duke tells him that he alone enjoys the authority to unveil the portrait and show the painting to the outsiders. Yes. So the depth and passion of its earnest glance, but to myself they turned. So read this line. The poet says, the Duke is saying that the depth and the passion of of the portrait of the Duchess, they can also they are only for Duke, for nobody else. So the uh, amazement of the strangers is also due to the mystery of the happy glance of the Duchess. The Duke tells him that after seeing the painting, it seemed as if those visitors wanted to ask the Duke how the face of Duchess could come to possess such an earnest look about it. Read the line, and seemed as if they would ask me. They hear the person who would have a look of the portrait. So he's saying, Duke is saying that you are not the first to turn and ask the sir. It was not her husband's presence only called that spot of joy into the Duchess' cheek, perhaps. So it is showing the nature of Duke. The people would have put the question to the Duke, but being afraid of the Duke's reaction, they never had the courage to ask this question. The Duke tells the messenger that he was not the first to have inquiring thought in his mind, because all those who saw the painting had the same curiosity, that why the Duchess is having so much blush on her face. So, the Duke, he is a typical Italian Duke of middle age, and he is suffering from feeling of jealousy, suspicious, and vanity. He is having false pride, and he has got his wife murdered, and he did not like the generous and responsive disposition of his wife. She was a frank, charming woman who, in her kindness, smiled at everything. So he is explaining the mystery of the happy spot on her face in the portrait to the messenger of the count. So let me explain you that the Duke tells the envoy that the sweet smiles of the lady were not reserved for her husband alone. And this thing, it was troubling Duke, because Duke was very possessive. He never liked that his wife smile to every person, every strangers. So the Duke explains why the portrait of the Duchess has a blush of happiness on her cheeks. So many people think that this blush came on her cheeks because the Duke was himself present at the time of painting. If you will read the next line, perhaps uh, Fra Pandolf, he chanced to say, her mental lapse over my lady's reached too much, or paint must never hope to produce the faint half blush that dies along her thought. So it was a beautiful line, and he is explaining that what could be the reason of the blush of the wife. So the depth and the passion of its earnest glance, but to myself they turned by the curtain I have drawn for you. So this was the line, and this we have read almost 10 lines, and it shows the nature and all about. It's a dramatic monologue, and the poem talks about the nature character of Duke. He's an imagine here we are introduced with an imaginary artist, and and there is a reason for drawing the curtain. It's so the person can see the prized possession. So we are having it's a superb portrait. And what the duke is describing, he's not describing the character of the duchess, he is describing both the character of duke also and the character of his wife also. So it's a beautiful poem. It's a dramatic monologue where the poet talks about uh, he is praising the painting of his wife, and he directs the attention of the guest to a painting. So the Duke praises the painting for looking so lifelike and then remarks on how hard the painter Fra Pandolf worked hard on it. The Duke asks the guest to come to sit and look at work, and then he explains that he deliberately mentioned the name of the painter because strangers like the emissary always look at the Duchess' painted face with its deep, passionate, and earnest glance and turn to the Duke, and only the Duke, since only he pulls back the curtain that reveals the painting, and act as though they would ask, if they dared, how an expression like that came into her face. So the Duke reiterates that the guest is not the first person to ask the question. So, if we talk about the theme of the poem, I'm just going to discuss the theme in brief, and in next we will take the theme in elaborate form. So, the poem is all about the objectification of women, that how the poet, how the Duke is objectifying woman. The poem also talks about the Victorian mentality of giving importance to social status, art, and it is also about control and manipulation. That how Duke is manipulating. So this was all about the first stanza of the poem, and we will read the next stanza in later video. I hope you have got, and you will definitely revise it. Thank you.